Hi there, I am Sumit Bansal, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the map function in Excel. Now, map is a Lambda helper function, which means that we are going to use a Lambda function within the map function. And I have a lot of examples in this video, so by the time you're done with the video, you will know exactly when and how to use the map function in Excel. So let's get started. So let me first start by explaining the syntax of the map function. So the map function takes a minimum of two arguments. The first one is the array, which could be a range of cells. And then the last argument is the lambda function that you want to apply on each part of that array. For example, in this case, I can choose this as the first element. Now this is an array. You can have multiple arrays if you want, so I can select multiple arrays as well. And then the last argument would always be a lambda function. So in this case, let's say I use a lambda where the first argument is going to be x, or you can name this anything, and that x value is going to take one element at a time from A2 to A11 or whatever range that you have, and then it is going to apply the function that you specify here on each cell of this range. So let's use a very simple one, which is x plus 1, and now when I hit enter, it gives me this result. Now obviously you do not need the map function in this case, but let me still explain what's happening. In this case, map function is taking one cell at a time from this range and then passing it on to the lambda function. So x becomes 1, then 1 is added to 1, the value is 2, that is returned. Then x becomes 2, then 2 plus 1 is 3, and so on. So this is a simple formula, but this can also be done by just using this here, which is A2 to A11 plus 1. Which means that you do not need the map formula in this case if you have a formula that can be applied on the entire range and it would also return the result as the entire range. You do not need the map function. I just wanted to show you how it works, but then later in this video I'm going to show you examples where you cannot do things using anything without the map function. Now let me show you another example, again something very simple, where I have this range and I only want to get the numbers but not anything which is not a number here in this range, in the similar sized range. So I can use the map function. This is my array. Then I can use the lambda function, and within lambda, let's call it x. You can call it anything you want. And then we can use if is number x. So it is going to check whether each element in this array, in this range, is a number or not. If it is a number, return that number, else return blank. And now when I hit enter, you can see that it has returned an array where if it is a number, it is returned, else a blank is returned. But as I said, because this is something that can be applied on the entire range, you do not actually need the map function here. I could just come here, I can use the if function, and then I could use is number, and within is number I can use this. And the reason I don't need the map function here is because is number can easily handle an array. So if it can handle an array and return the result, I do not need the map function in this case. So here if I just use this and then use blank, it would also give me the same result. So this is just to show you how the map function works. But now let's look at examples where you cannot do things without using the map function. So here I have this data where I have these team names and I want to create a running count. So for example, in this case, for red team, I want 1 here and then 2 here and then 3 here and so on. Similarly for blue team, 1 here and 2 here and so on. So we are going to create this using the map function. So here I would have the map function with this as my array. And then we are going to have the lambda function. Now in the lambda function, you can use any variable. I'll just use something called team. And then we would have the function, which is going to be the countif function. And within countif function, I would start with this cell. And what I want is it to make this expanding range, which means that if we go down, this should become A2 to A3 and then A2 to A4, but still be checking for the element in the cell, in the current cell. So what I'm going to do is simply use team here. Now the way it works is a map function doesn't only passes on the value to the lambda function, it also passes on the cell reference. So this is going to understand that when I use team and when it is evaluating this cell, it is going to use it as A2. When it is evaluating this cell, it is going to evaluate it as A4. So this becomes my expanding range. And then finally I want to check for the value, which is also team, which means if it is an A2, I want to check for red team. If it is A3, I want to check for blue team, and so on. So now if I hit enter, you can see I've got the result where this is 1, but this becomes 2 and this becomes 3 and so on. And the reason this works is because it is evaluating one cell at a time. The reference is passed on, but the value is also passed on. So here it becomes A2, which is red team. Here it becomes A2 is to A2, and here it becomes red team. But when we are talking about this cell here, in this case it becomes red team, but this becomes A2 to A4, and this becomes red team. So it is counting it as 2 and 3 and so on. So this is an interesting example where I have these categories and these item names, and I want to get all the items in each category, let's say separated by comma. Now I can do that by using the filter function. So let's try and just do it for one single cell. So if I do that, I would use the filter function where the array is going to be this, and then the second would be this part equal to this value here. So if that is true, if it is equal to fruit, it is going to give me the result in the filter function, else it will not give me the result. So now if I hit enter, you can see it has given me all these names for fruit. If I change this to vegetable, it is going to only give me the names of vegetables. Now I do not want them in one vertical array. I want them in one single cell separated by comma. So that can be done by using the text join function, where I would first specify the delimiter as comma, and then this is my formula. And now when I hit enter, it gives me this result. But what is happening is, in this case, my formula goes through these entire ranges and then compare them, filters the result, then uses text join to combine them and give me the result in one single cell. But if I want it to happen for all of these categories, I cannot use this function. If I change this to D2 to D4, sorry, something like this, it is not going to work, because this formula can only work when things are happening where the entire array is being filtered and then combined using text join. That cannot happen for multiple values, but that can be done within the map function, because map function can take one of these categories one by one, do the same operation filtering text join, but for each element one by one, and give the result in one single cell. See what happens. Let me copy this formula. Let's use the map function where this is my array. Now I want to do the same thing I did, but I want to do it one by one for fruit, then vegetable, then dairy. And I can do that with the map function. So here I would use the lambda function. Let's again call this category. So CAT for category. And then within the lambda function, I need to specify the formula. I would use the same formula we used, which earlier, for one single category, but now we are going to use it within the map function. Now instead of D2, I would replace it with category, which means that now what it's going to do is it is going to first pass on D2 to this value CAT, and then do everything, which is filtering, text join, combine, give the result in the cell, then do the same thing for D3, and then do the same thing for D4. See what happens when I hit enter. It gives me the result, all the results here. I can just copy this formula, put it here, and one single formula does this for me. So this is where map function is very useful, because map function takes one value at a time, and then you can do whatever you want with this value. You can expand it, make it an array, make it anything, as long as it returns one single value. Within the function you can do anything you want, and then move on to the next element. Now this is something that you cannot do with many functions. I think you cannot do it with any other function except the map function. Here is another similar example where I have these names and I want to go through their sales values and get the second highest value. Now to do that, if I have to do it for just one single person, I can use again the filter function, where these are the sales, then this is the range that has the names, and I would equate it with this person's name here. When I do that, it gives me this range here, and I can use the large function on this range and extract the second largest value, and it gives me 1200. But I cannot do it for all of these names together in one go, but I can do it using the map function. So again, let's copy this formula, remove this. Let's create that map formula. So here, this is my array, and then we'll use the lambda function. Let's use the argument as person, and then we are going to have the formula. We'll just use the same formula we have here, but instead of A2, I'm just going to replace it with person and close this bracket, and it gives us the result. So you can see something which is not possible with the filter function and all the other array functions is made possible because of the map function, because it takes one element, goes into the function, does whatever it wants within the function, comes back with one single value, and then moves on to the next value. Now this is an interesting example where I want to calculate 5-day moving average, and I'm going to do that using the map function. Now what I want to do is in these first 4 cells, I do not want any value, because to calculate 5-day moving average, it can only start from this value onwards, because this, the 5th row, is where the 5 days complete. So here I'm going to use the map function, where first I'm going to use this range, and then I'm going to use the lambda function, and then within the lambda function, let's use x as the variable name, where each element, each value from B2 to B11 is going to be passed on into x. Now here I need to check first whether 5 days have passed or not. If it is first, second, third or fourth row, I do not want to return any value. So in this case, I would just check the row number of x minus the row number of the first cell here. It could be B2, it could be A2. And then if this is less than 4, because let's say I'm talking about the 5th day, row number 5 minus row number 1 is 4. So that is where I want to get the result. But if it is less than 4, I do not want to get any result. So I'm going to just use blank. But if it is more than 4, then I'm going to use the average function. And within the average function, now I want to somehow extract the 5 values starting from the current value. So current value and then 4 values below before that. So I'm going to use the offset function, where I'm going to use the reference as x, then offset it by 4 rows, 0 columns, which means that if it is, let's say row number 5 here, 160, it is going to go back to 100, and then I want 100 plus 4 more values. So the height needs to be 5, and then the column width needs to be 1. Now when I use this formula, you can see it gives me the result. It starts from this row onwards. These 4 rows are empty, because then it analyzes the if function. Here till the row number is less than 4, it is going to be empty, and then as the row number is, the difference in row number is more than 4, it is going to calculate the average and give us the result here. So this is an interesting formula, and this works because, as I said, with the map function, you can pass one element one by one from this range, and then you can do whatever you want within the lambda function. It could expand it, it could create an array, it could create anything, as long as it returns one single value. And finally, I have this example where I have this text and I want to reverse it using the map function. Now this is obviously a practically useless example, but the reason I want to show you this is because I want to show you that you can pass one cell into the map function, and then what you do within the lambda in the map function doesn't matter. You can split it, you can filter it, you can join it, as long as you pass one single value and it returns one single value. So in this case, I have this cell, and let's do it for one single cell. So I would start with the mid function, where it is asking for the text, which is this value here. Then the start number. So instead of giving one start number, I would use the sequence function. And then within the sequence function, I would use the len function for this cell. So it is going to give me a sequence of as many numbers, as many characters are there in this cell. And then for column here, so I don't want, just I'll close this for sequence function, and then number of characters, I would split it one at a time. And now when I hit enter, it gives me this array, a vertical array, but I do not want a vertical array, I want a horizontal array. So what I would do is go in here, and in the sequence function, instead of rows, I would make it columns. So I would leave the rows argument blank, and I would split it in columns. So the sequence is going to be given in column, and then the same way mid function is going to give us the result in the same row in different columns. So here I get this result, but I do not want it in this way, I want it reversed. So again, I'm going to go back into the sequence function, and here in the third argument, in the start value, I would just use len of this. So it is going to start from the end, and I want the step value to be -1. So it would start from the end and then go left. So now when I hit enter, it gives me the same text, but in the reverse order. And now I want to combine it. So I can come here, I can use text join, where my delimiter is going to be blank. And then this is the formula. Now when I hit enter, you can see it has reversed the text. Now I'm going to use this same formula, but within the map function, because if I try and use this with this entire array, it's not going to work. Text join also cannot give us the result in a vertical array as well as in a horizontal array. So this is not going to work. But if I do this within the map function, it will. So I would use the map function. Then this is my array. Then use the lambda function. And then within this, let's call it text. And then we'll have our formula. And within the formula, instead of A2, I would just use this value txt wherever I have A2, and let's close the bracket, hit enter, and you can see it has done the job. Now the thing I wanted to show you in this case is you can see that I'm passing one value at a time into the Lambda function, but within the Lambda function we use the sequence function to first break it into a horizontal array, then we use text join to combine it back. Doesn't matter, you can do anything within the Lambda function as long as you are giving it one single value and it returns one single value. As long as that is true, you can do anything you want within the Lambda function, within the map function. So these are the examples I wanted to show you in this video. I hope you found them useful. Also, if you're liking these videos, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you never miss out on any new Excel tips video I come up with. Thank you and have a nice day.